Now with the theme that I prepared today is awakening in the body. And this theme came to me as I recently returned from a Zen retreat at the Tassajara Zen Mountain Retreat Center in California, off the grid in a mountain valley. I was there for about a week and part of a sangha community. So as part of this sangha community, as a guest student at Tassajara, we're invited to join what's called the daily schedule. And that's joining the residential and the monastic community in their daily schedule. And this involves a wake-up bell at approximately 5:15. And that allows you to be ready to be seated in the Zendo or the Zen Center by 6 a.m. for meditation. And then also ceremonies in the Zen tradition. And from my personal experience, this is not often easy due to early morning stiffness and joint pain or whatever else may be arising in my body on any given day. And this is also where some uncertainty may arise or has arisen in my own ability to sit through a retreat. And it's something that I wish to address today with a focus on mindfulness of the body. So this is one of the ways we show up for our shared practice. Many of you are familiar with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And mindfulness of the body is an important one, a first consideration. And I'll talk more about this in the Dharma talk after our seated practice and movement with Emily. But why this is top of mind is as I'm sitting, I'm also noticing the changing nature of my body, including pain. It's not always pain-free. And so this has really become somewhat of a concern for me as I go on Zen retreats. I do wonder if I'm going to be able to make it through the daily practice sometimes, and even finding stillness in the body. I know that showing up is the first step, and then finding a comfortable seat or position as best as I can. And this does mean preparing the body beforehand, some stretching, finding the right cushions for the body, and sometimes even moving to a chair, which has its own demands. Sitting in a chair is also not always easeful position for the body. It really depends on your own body. And so my personal practice has been greatly informed, deepened by having to make effort to just sit. And the generosity, if you will, of the practice revealing itself over and over again as I show up and do my best, just as I am. So this is the theme for today of awakening in the body and really seeing the Dharma and the teachings of Buddha as an infinitely compassionate practice. All right, so let's begin. Now finding your own position for meditation. That may be lying down or seated, standing. These are all perfect positions for meditation. And we can also let go of ideas that we may have on what meditation should be. We can sit and explore a mind that's open, receptive, and curious. really while trying not to achieve anything special at all. I'm going to lightly guide this session and begin with some posture points that invite a sense of dignity and awareness of the body sitting, if you're in a seated position. And these are all invitations, inviting the body into stillness and rest and ease. Softening the eyes, inviting the mind to also be more restful. And if you're seated, you can just notice how the body is seated in this moment. And some of the guiding posture points are to have your ears over shoulders, your chin slightly tucked, allowing the neck muscles to relax. The palms maybe resting in the lap, well, palm over palm, thumbs slightly touching. And beginning with your own internal body scan for any tension from your head to your toes. Allowing any tense or tight places to relax. Allowing your whole body to be at ease. Just as it is in this moment. Here we are, just breathing. Noticing the body breathing naturally. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, knowing the body is breathing in. And breathing out, knowing the body is breathing out. Really allowing this whole system of the mind, body, to settle itself. Sensing pressure where the body meets the cushion. Mindfulness of the body and the body breathing. What's it like to be still? What's it like to set aside any need to do anything special? It's completely natural that thoughts will arise. Simply noticing thoughts as thoughts. Oh, the thinking mind. And coming back to awareness of just sitting here in an open, relaxed condition of mind. We're sensing the body, sensing the quality of mind that's present right here. Beginner's mind is an open mind, just like this, present, receptive, curious. An empty mind that is open to everything. An empty mind that is open to everything. Simply noticing when thoughts bubble up and when they don't. Open to everything. Hearing sounds around us. Noticing thoughts as thoughts. Feeling sensations in the body. Being open to whatever arises. With curiosity and without judgment. In meditation, we can begin to know the condition of our mind. We can be curious about what pulls us away from this moment, what distracts us. Simply noticing. Gently coming back to awareness of sitting here in an open, relaxed condition of mind. We're sensing the quality of mind that's present right now. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. An open mind, just like this, open to everything. In the closing moments of this practice, I would like to share merit from our collective practice. May the benefits touch all beings without exception. May all beings experience happiness, safety, and joy. May all beings live an awakened life. And a deep bow and deep gratitude for showing up today, for all of you sharing your practice. And slowly coming back to our shared space, finding some movement in your body. Whatever's comfortable for you. And on that note, we can transition to movement with Emily. That was wonderful. Awakening in the body. It goes right along with the theme. I prepared a short Dharma talk on awakening in the body, mindfulness, zazen, and the Dharma gate of joyful ease. So here we are. And a lot of focus on the body today, arriving in the body. And before we think about mindfulness or try to understand anything about Buddhist teachings and practice, just simply notice that you're here right now in a body. Once again, you may feel your feet touching the ground, the floor, your legs resting on a cushion, feeling the weight of the body being held. And just noticing your hands, your shoulders, your face, the body breathing. And perhaps the mind is wandering somewhere else. Just notice this too. I think one of the things meditation reveals fairly quickly is how much of our lives we spend somewhere other than in our bodies. We can be sitting perfectly still and yet be like 1,000 miles away. But then something brings us back. It could be a sound or an ache in the knee. Feeling of our body in a chair, and then suddenly we're back. We're here again. And for me, this is one of the simplest ways to understand mindfulness of the body. So the body gives us a way to wake up from thought and return to the life that is actually happening. And so as a refresher for some of you, the Buddha gave us a remarkably practical framework for cultivating the kind of awareness I'm talking about in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And the first that has a lot of focus today is mindfulness of the body. And the Buddha reminds us to see the body in the body, not as my body or as myself, but really a collection of parts. And there are practices on meditating on a number of parts. I believe 32 parts is one meditation. And mindfulness helps us to recognize the body as impermanent, sometimes unsatisfactory, and selfless. And again, in Buddha's words, we know the body as it really is. The second foundation is mindfulness of feelings. Whether an experience is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, Buddha is telling us to contemplate the feelings in the feelings. We regard feelings in this way to help us develop a simple, non-judgmental awareness of what we're experiencing. And that was part of the guidance in today's meditation as well. Watching each sensation, emotion, as it arises, remaining present, noticing as it changes or passes away. We observe that any feeling is also impermanent. We come to know feelings as they really are. The same process applies to the third foundation, mindfulness of mind. Knowing the condition of the mind itself. Is it restless, fearful, angry, joyful, concentrated, maybe distracted? And we pay attention to each thought as it arises. Also, remaining present as it changes or passes away. We can notice ruminating thoughts and understand that we're not our thoughts. We come to know the mind as it really is. And the fourth is the mindfulness of dhammas or phenomena, the patterns and qualities of experience through which we begin to understand how suffering arises and how freedom becomes possible. So this is a very short synopsis of the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And before Buddha attained enlightenment, he was a truth seeker, searching outside of himself. And he never found what he was looking for. Instead, he discovered that he was subject to birth, to growth, illness, sorrow, and death. Then he began to search within. When we look inside, we come to understand the significance of the Four Noble Truths around suffering, the roots of suffering, how they're within us, and then the methods of eliminating or relieving suffering. Those methods are also within us. And so the four foundations of mindfulness are not four separate approaches. They're four integrated ways of becoming intimate with the same unfolding experience. And the Buddha begins with the body, with the direct experience of being alive. And you'll often notice in our mindfulness insight meditation and the guidance, a strong focus on the body breathing, sitting, walking. And this first foundation also includes awareness, this awareness of our breathing, our posture, daily activity, the physical nature of our bodies, and also our body's impermanence. We may find that this teaching to be startlingly ordinary, simple. Awakening begins by being present for what we're actually doing. And the breath, for many of us, may be one of the simplest ways into this practice. Not for all of us. And the Buddha's instructions do begin by knowing the breath as it is. If it's long, we know it's long. If it's short, we know it's short. And we're not trying to make the breath better or make ourselves calm. First, we simply know the breath. And then the practice may deepen toward experiencing the whole body while breathing, allowing the bodily activity to settle itself. And this is very different from thinking about breathing. We can understand breathing perfectly well as an idea while barely experiencing it. So mindfulness asks us to move from the idea of the body into the experience of the body. And this brings me to Dogen, a Zen master, Dogen, who taught and practiced in the 13th century. Considered the forefather of Zen Buddhism, bringing the practices from China to Japan. And he provided instructions for Zazen, or seated meditation is a simple definition, in the writings of the Fukan Zazenji, or How Everyone Can Sit. And Dogen describes Zazen as the Dharma gate of joyful ease. Joyful ease. So what does this mean? Those are not necessarily the first words that come to my mind when I think about a long Zen retreat and sitting for long periods of time, multiple times a day. and learning of the practice of Zazen and some of the instructions, right? Sit straighter, upright, don't move, concentrate harder, stop thinking. Again, don't move. But I think Dogen was pointing towards something actually quite different. That Zazen is not fundamentally a technique for forcing the mind and body into stillness and silence. It's not a project for self-improvement, transforming ourselves to some better version. But we sit down and we meet this body, this mind, as they are. The point of our practice is not to become something other than what we already are. And yet his instructions begin very physical, arranging the body, sitting upright, allowing the breath to move naturally, allowing the body to settle into a posture. And then, rather than trying to manufacture awakening, we practice being fully present. This is a very important instruction for me because there's something that I find quite demanding about Zen practice physically. And yet the heart of that demanding practice is not hardness at all. The invitation is simply to be here and to be here completely with the body we actually have. And there's also something wonderfully simple about a Zen monastery schedule. So when you go to a Zen center, you're thrown right into the daily schedule of the residents and the monastics who live there. The bell rings very early, as I mentioned. Very early for me, 5:15 a.m. And we sit, we stand, we bow, we chant, we walk, we work, and we eat, all according to the daily schedule. You can think of the daily schedule as the first teacher. And then we sit again. And so Zen practice is profoundly embodied, as you can see by the description of the daily schedule. And there's another Japanese term I wish to talk about. It's called shikantaza. And this is defined as just sitting, which means we don't do anything extra during our meditation. There's no guidance. We don't try to concentrate on anything in particular or bring our minds back to a particular focus or even tell ourselves that we're meditating. We just are instructed, if anything, to be quiet and still enough so we may observe how our minds behave. We don't do anything to change what's actually going on. An aligned, stable posture in your own body is the foundation of following the breath. And this is the entryway to your own personal practice of shikantaza. And yet, they're also the reality of our knees, our hips, our backs, fatigue. One thing I notice is that there's a body that sits down early in the morning and perhaps a different body that shows up in the evening for Zazen. And as I continue this practice, I'm increasingly aware that a demanding Zen schedule asks something different of my body than it once did. And that itself has become part of the practice. And there can be a subtle idea in Zen that serious practice means pushing through, enduring, staying with the schedule. There is real value in discovering that we don't need to respond to every impulse for comfort. There is value in noting that something itches. I don't need to scratch it. The first moment of discomfort does not mean that we have to move. We can stay long enough to discover that a sensation changes. I find this really interesting. And sometimes I feel like there's a whole family of bugs that could be crawling on my face, my cheeks. And then I just notice that. And then it does disappear. That's what I'm getting at. We can stay long enough to discover that sensations change. Zen Master Suzuki Roshi said, you should sit with your whole body. You can check on your posture during Zazen. Each part of your body should practice Zazen. And he's going on with a quote from his teaching. If you think that you have difficulty in some part of your body, then the rest of the body should help the part that is having difficulty. He says, for example, if your mudra, this is your hand position that I described, palm over palm, thumb slightly touching. If your mudra is having difficulty, your whole body should help your mudra do Zazen. And Dogen's description of Zazen as the Dharma gate of joyful ease invites another reflection. So if Zazen is a gate of ease, why am I sometimes practicing as though I'm at war with my body? And maybe joyful ease doesn't mean that the body will always be comfortable. Maybe it means dropping some of the struggle we bring to the body, like a second arrow, that second arrow. The idea that I should be sitting differently, that my knees shouldn't hurt, that a serious Zen practitioner should be able to sit perfectly still, that practice should look a particular way. But I am growing to learn that making Zazen accessible to the body I actually have means letting go of these rigid expectations, not abandoning the determination, not avoiding discomfort at all times, but meeting the conditions that are actually here, this body, today. And this has changed the way that I understand bodily pain in practice. The Buddha never taught that pain is inherently spiritually valuable or that we should seek it out. Bodies hurt. Bodies become tired. Bodies become sick. Bodies age. And pain may become a Dharma gate because it allows us to see very clearly the distinction between pain and suffering. The Buddha describes this through the teaching of the two arrows. The first arrow is that painful body experience. And then very often we might shoot ourselves again with a second arrow that, oh, I can't do this, or this shouldn't be happening. My body is failing me. And what we can wake up to is that the physical pain is real. And now it's surrounded by fear, resistance, or compassion. And the Buddha's teachings isn't that a trained practitioner never feels that first arrow, that first suffering. There is pain in the body. The teaching is that we can learn not to add to the second one. And perhaps this is where the Buddhist teaching and Dogen's joyful ease meet. The body may still hurt, and we can stop fighting the fact that it hurts. We can listen more closely. We can adjust when adjustment is wise. We can remain still when remaining still is wise. We can stop measuring ourselves against some imaginary standard of what a practitioner should be. And sometimes something surprising happens. The body can be uncomfortable while the mind is at ease. This has become a profound teaching for me. Ease does not necessarily mean the absence of pain. Sometimes ease appears when the struggle with pain begins to soften. And this is where I find Dogen's teachings so helpful. Joyful ease doesn't require the body to remain unchanged. This very body. There's a line in Zen Master Hakuin's Song of Zazen from about 1760 that I find especially moving in this theme, where he says, this very body is Buddha. This very body. He's not talking about some future perfected body, not the body after the pain disappears, not the body that can sit full lotus, not the younger body, but this one, the aching body, the tired body, the body that reluctantly arises when the 5:15 morning bell rings. So what if this body is not an obstacle to awakening? What if it's the gate? This changes the relationship to practice. Instead of asking, how do I make my body conform to Zazen, to meditation? We can begin asking, how does this body practice Zazen today? Can a painful body become a gate to ease or even joy? The Buddha's teachings describe mindfulness developing into investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. So Buddhist joy does not necessarily mean pleasure in the ordinary sense. There's joy in being present. There's joy in realizing this moment doesn't have to be different before we can inhabit it. And I think this is part of what Dogen means by the Dharma gate of joyful ease. Dharma gate as an awakening opportunity doesn't require us to escape this ordinary, vulnerable, changing body. It asks us to inhabit it, to know it, to listen, to soften, and to release. And perhaps to discover that this very body, imperfect, aging, sometimes painful, always changing, is not standing in the way of practice. This very body is where we practice. This very body is the gate. Breathing in and breathing out right here. So a deep bow, gratitude, and thank you for your practice.